The year 1847 was a pivotal moment in the Mexican-American War. General Winfield Scott's campaign had successfully captured the crucial port of Veracruz. However, the coastal lowlands, the Tierra Caliente, posed a deadly threat. Yellow fever, the dreaded vomito negro, was beginning its seasonal reign of terror. Scott knew his army had to advance to the healthier, higher elevations inland. Blocking the national road to the interior was General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. Santa Anna, ever resilient, had raised a new army after previous defeats. He chose to make his stand at a formidable pass known as Cerro Gordo. The terrain itself was a natural fortress of deep ravines and steep hills. Santa Anna's engineers had augmented these natural defenses with fortifications. Artillery batteries were placed strategically to command the road. The main fortification sat atop the hill of El Telegrafo, dominating the landscape. Santa Anna believed any American advance would be forced into a suicidal frontal assault. He was confident in the strength of his position. The American vanguard, under Brigadier General David E. Twiggs, arrived first. Initial reconnaissance confirmed the daunting nature of the Mexican defenses. A young engineer on Scott's staff, Captain Robert E. Lee, was tasked with finding a weakness. Lee conducted a daring and difficult reconnaissance of the terrain to the Mexican left. He discovered a rough, barely discernible trail that bypassed the main fortifications. This path, though treacherous, could lead the Americans to the Mexican rear. When General Scott arrived, he immediately grasped the potential of Lee's discovery. A plan was formulated, a flanking maneuver to encircle and trap Santa Anna's army. A large portion of the army would undertake the arduous march. Meanwhile, a smaller force would create a diversion, feigning a frontal attack. The success of the entire operation depended on secrecy and endurance. On April 17th, the movement began. Twiggs' division started clearing a path through the rugged terrain. The work was slow, hot, and exhausting. They encountered Mexican pickets, and a skirmish erupted. The fighting escalated as the Americans pushed towards a hill called La Atalaya. This hill was a crucial piece of high ground in front of the main Mexican fort. Colonel William S. Harney led the charge to seize it. After a fierce struggle, the Mexican defenders were pushed back. The capture of La Atalaya was a vital first step. It provided a platform for American artillery to be brought up during the night. Under the cover of darkness, men and mules toiled to position the guns. The air was thick with anticipation for the dawn. At first light, on April 18th, the main assault began. Brigadier General Gideon Pillo's brigade began their diversionary attack. They drew the attention of the Mexican forces on the right flank. Meanwhile, the main effort was directed at the Mexican rear. Twiggs' division, guided by Lee, emerged from the rough terrain. Their appearance was a complete surprise to the Mexican defenders. The attack on the fortress of El Telegrafo was two-pronged. Colonel Harney's brigade charged the front of the hill. Simultaneously, Colonel Bennett Riley's brigade attacked from the rear. The combined assault was overwhelming. The Mexican soldiers fought bravely, but were caught in a hopeless situation. Soon, the American flag was raised over the summit of El Telegrafo. Brigadier General James Shields' brigade had also achieved its objective. They had successfully cut the Jalapa road, blocking the Mexican line of retreat. Panic began to spread through the Mexican ranks. The sudden collapse of their strongest position shattered their morale. With their escape route blocked, the Mexican army disintegrated. Soldiers threw down their weapons and fled into the surrounding ravines. General Santa Anna himself was forced into a hasty and undignified escape. He left behind his personal carriage and many of his belongings. Famously, his prosthetic leg was captured by soldiers of the 4th Illinois Infantry. The battle was a stunning and decisive victory for the Americans. American casualties were remarkably light, with 63 killed and 368 wounded. Mexican losses were catastrophic. Over 1,000 were killed or wounded, and around 3,000 were taken prisoner. The Americans also captured a vast quantity of military supplies. The strategic importance of the victory at Cerro Gordo could not be overstated. It effectively shattered the last major army between Scott and the Mexican capital. The road to Jalapa, and from there to Puebla, was now opened. Scott's army could now move into the highlands, escaping the threat of yellow fever. The battle was a textbook example of a successful flanking maneuver. It showcased the critical importance of military engineering and reconnaissance. Captain Robert E. Lee's contribution was particularly noted and praised. Many other young officers who would later become famous in the American Civil War also distinguished themselves. Names like Ulysses S. Grant, George B. McClellan, and P.G.T. Beauregard were on that list. For Santa Anna, the defeat was a devastating blow to his prestige. His ability to rally a cohesive national defense was severely undermined. The news of the defeat caused political turmoil in Mexico City. The American army, though outnumbered, had proven its superiority in leadership and tactics. The soldiers' morale soared after the victory. They now felt invincible, believing the road to Mexico City was all but assured. The captured Mexican soldiers were paroled, a gesture of magnanimity from General Scott. Scott hoped this would diminish their will to fight in the future. The army rested and reorganized in the pleasant climate of Jalapa. The fear of the vomito was now behind them. The path ahead was not without its challenges, but the greatest obstacle had been overcome. The Battle of Cerro Gordo would be studied by military leaders for generations to come. It was a testament to the power of intellect over brute force. The victory solidified Winfield Scott's reputation as a brilliant military strategist. His nickname, Old Fuss and Feathers, belied a sharp and adaptable military mind. The memory of the battle would linger for the soldiers who fought there. They would remember the heat, the dust, and the terrifying roar of the cannons. They would also remember the thrill of the unexpected victory. The flanking march was a story of incredible physical effort. Soldiers had to drag themselves and their equipment through near impassable terrain. The engineers who cleared the path were the unsung heroes of the day. Their work made the decisive maneuver possible. The Mexican army's overconfidence in their position was their undoing. They had failed to imagine an attack from their supposedly secure flank. This failure of imagination cost them the battle. The American army's adaptability was its greatest strength. They were willing to deviate from conventional tactics to achieve their objective. The political consequences in the United States were significant. The victory bolstered support for the war effort, which had been controversial. President James K. Polk's expansionist policies seemed justified by the success. For Mexico, the loss of another army was a national trauma. The country was descending further into chaos and despair. The will to continue the war was eroding among the political elite. Yet, guerrilla resistance would continue to plague the American supply lines. The war was far from over, but its outcome was becoming increasingly clear. The advance on Puebla, the next major city, could now proceed. The American army marched with a newfound sense of confidence. They were no longer just an invading force. They were a conquering army. The story of Santa Anna's Ley became a popular and amusing anecdote among the troops. It symbolized the complete and almost comical nature of the Mexican general's defeat. The leg itself would be taken back to Illinois as a war trophy. The battle had been a brutal, yet elegantly executed, affaire d'arts. The landscape of Cerro Gordo, once a scene of carnage, would slowly heal. Nature would reclaim the man-made fortifications and trenches. But the memory of the battle would remain etched in the history of two nations. It was a turning point, a moment where the tide of war shifted decisively. The American soldiers felt a deep respect for the engineers who had guided them. The bond between the line officers and the staff engineers was strengthened. The captured Mexican artillery was a significant prize. These guns would be turned against their former owners in subsequent battles. The prisoners of war were a logistical challenge for Scott's army. Paroling them was both a practical and a psychological move. The battle demonstrated the effectiveness of the West Point military education. Many of the key officers on both sides were trained professionals. However, the American leadership proved more innovative on this day. The terrain around Cerro Gordo was unforgiving. Cacti and thorny bushes tore at the soldiers' uniforms and skin. Snakes and other creatures were a constant, unseen threat. The victory was earned through immense hardship. The view from the top of El Telegrafo was breathtaking. From there, the American soldiers could see the path to victory unfolding before them. The battle was a microcosm of the war itself. It pitted a smaller, better-led force against a larger, less organized one. The outcome was a testament to strategy, discipline, and daring. Cerro Gordo was a painful lesson for the Mexican army. It was a triumphant moment for the United States Army. The echoes of its cannons would reverberate all the way to the halls of Montezuma.